Good evening, curious traveler. Tonight, we return to the heart of the Shire, where wisdom is served in generous slices and common sense smells like freshly baked pie. It's there we'll meet a certain Anonymous of Bag End, author of a manuscript as improbable as its crumbs, a heap of Hobbit rules that somehow explain why these simple folk live so well and laugh so easily. They say the text was found beneath a pile of crumpled towels and cake crumbs, and frankly, there's no more Hobbit-like place to store philosophy than that. But don't be fooled, what seems to be nothing more than a collection of domestic quirks is, in truth, a little window into how hobbits understand the world. Each rule is a blend of humor, wisdom, and warm bread, a lesson wrapped in the sense of kitchen and neighborly laughter. You'll discover why refusing pie might summon storms, why fences covered in flowers hold more power than speeches, and what Aunt Marigold's socks have to do with coexistence and self-knowledge. It's the sort of philosophy that could only have been born in a place where second breakfast is considered essential. So, before diving into this delicious jumble of crumbs and counsel, take a moment to get comfortable. If the Shire shares something with this channel, it's the love for good conversation and the small wonders of Middle-earth, and if you enjoy exploring the gentler, more humorous side of Tolkien's mythology, you're in the right place. And since hobbits believe in small gestures of kindness, here's yours. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, it's our way of sharing a second breakfast with you. Now, close your eyes for a moment. Imagine the smell of fresh bread, the distant creak of a round door, and a soft breeze carrying laughter and the whistle of a kettle. There, among the green hills and gardens bright with flowers hanging over fences, lies an old chest. Inside it, beneath rumpled towels and the secrets of home, rests a manuscript no one was ever meant to take too seriously, and that's precisely why it tells so much truth. That's where our story begins. Found beneath a pile of crumpled towels and cake crumbs at the bottom of a chest in the Shire, this manuscript gathers the small bits of wisdom that keep hobbits happy and well-fed, even if they rarely admit to following them. Written by a certain Anonymous of Bag End, probably because he nodded off before signing, it's a collection of simple truths, tested through centuries of good company and hearty meals. They say the manuscript was rediscovered by chance, when young Dudo Gamgee was searching for an apron for afternoon tea and stumbled upon a fragment of the Shire's history, one that smelled faintly of sugar and irony. The pages, yellowed and slightly greasy, still held crumbs of apple cake, which, to local scholars, serves as irrefutable proof of authenticity. Between crooked notes and tea stains lie reflections as hobbit-like as their bare feet. Each line feels as though it was written between a sip and a chuckle, as if the author had decided, out of pure good cheer, to record what everyone already knew, but no one had ever dared to write down. And so, with no intention of teaching anything at all, he left behind a charming portrait of a people who live life as one savors time itself, slowly, with pleasure, and with an eye always open for the last crumbs of pie. Some say the manuscript is nothing more than a joke born from a lazy afternoon. Others, more romantic, believe it to be a kind of spiritual guide, a hobbit attempt to grasp the great mysteries of existence through small gestures, watering the garden, choosing the right tea, or knowing exactly when to take a nap. Either way, these pages endure as a reminder that, in the Shire, wisdom rarely comes in hardcovers, it's more often wrapped in a napkin. And that is why the Anonymous of Bag End became, quite unintentionally, a domestic philosopher, the sort who writes between one batch and the next, convinced that happiness is made of the well-savored crumbs of life. From these pages arise the rules of the Shire, simple, straightforward, and ever so slightly sweet. None of them promises glory or fortune, but all of them offer something far better. The art of living with ease, laughing at oneself, and always enjoying every last bite of pie. Section 1, on Food and Trust. In the Shire, food has never been just about eating, it's a language. A shared plate is worth more than a handshake. That's why the following rules speak not only of pies, teas, and kettles, but of the Hobbit art of making friends. Rule 1. Never trust anyone who refuses a second slice of pie. If the heart is capable of denying such a blessing, what else might it deny? Those who refuse to share sweetness may also refuse to share their hearts. It's often said here that a hobbit's character can be measured by the way he approaches a laid table. Not by the haste to eat, that's more a dwarvish trait, mind you, but by the genuine joy of accepting what's been offered. I clearly remember one afternoon when old Mr. Porrin Brandybuck was invited for tea at Mrs. Camelia's house, she being famous for her pear pie with honey glaze. Camelia, as hospitable as few others, served him a generous slice and patiently waited for the inevitable request for seconds. But Porrin, ever meticulous, always worried about the tightness of his waistcoat buttons, refused. He said he needed to stay in shape for the village dance. Camelia simply smiled and served the rest of the pie to the neighbors. The next morning, the festival was cancelled, rain poured without pause, and Porrin spent the day staring out the window with an empty plate and a thin soul. Since then, the Shire folk have repeated the saying, those who refuse today's pie may miss tomorrow's luck. In the Shire, sharing food is more than a gesture of hospitality, it's a way of saying, I trust you, without needing difficult words. Accepting a second slice is the Hobbit way of thanking the universe for the oven's generosity and the company at the table. Refusing, that's another story. Refusing is like raising an invisible fence between the plate and the heart. In modern times, perhaps men do much the same with their phones in hand, refusing attention, conversation, pause, all in the name of a hurry that leads nowhere. We hobbits prefer the old method, sharing sweetness, sharing time, laughing at life with crumbs on our clothes. That's why this rule isn't truly about pie, it's about trust. Because whoever accepts another's sweetness also accepts a bit of affection, comfort, and friendship. And those who refuse, well, they might seem polite, but risk going through life with a clean plate and an empty heart. Rule 2. The first breakfast is sacred, those who respect it gain energy. The second, indispensable, those who honor it find joy. And if there's a third, call the neighbors, for good happiness was never meant to be kept. Some say hobbits go overboard with their meals, but anyone watching closely knows it isn't the stomach that demands so much, it's the soul. It isn't gluttony, it's gratitude. In the Shire, breakfast isn't a habit, it's a ritual of renewal. While the sun is still stretching across the hills, the first warm bread and steaming kettle remind everyone that being alive is, in itself, a reason to give thanks. The second breakfast, that's another matter. It isn't about hunger, but philosophy. It's the reminder that haste has never added flavor to anyone's day. While the rest of the world races against time, hobbits prefer to sit and savor the morning slowly, as if saying to destiny, you can wait, I'm savoring the now. In modern times, I see people drinking coffee while standing, staring at screens that never look back. They live as though the day were an enemy to be conquered, not a feast to be enjoyed. If hobbits had invented the clock, it would certainly pause after every bite. That's why the rule says, if there's a third, call the neighbors. Because happiness that's hoarded sours, and a loaf shared in company is worth more than a solitary feast. The secret isn't in the number of meals, it's in remembering to pause and taste life, one slice at a time. Rule 3. If the topic is politics, let the kettle be full and the heart be light. After all, a good conversation should warm like tea, not burn like a stove. There are two kinds of discussions in the Shire, those that end in laughter, and those that end with neighbors frowning through the window. Politics, the elders say, is an ingredient much like ginger, splendid in small doses, dangerous in excess. And if the kettle runs dry, my friend, it's not ideas that heat up, but tempers. Hobbits learned long ago that nothing good ever grows without a pause to breathe. So before debating the grand matters of the village, like the new bridge over the Brandywine, the rising price of ale at the Prancing Pony, or the suspicion that the mayor's been favoring his own cousin in the pumpkin contests, they fill the kettle, wipe the table, and pour the first cup. Not out of diplomacy, but pure survival instinct, hot tea forces even the stubborn to wait for the right time to speak. Perhaps folks have yet to understand this simple truth. They argue with boiling hearts and no intention of offering biscuits. They raise their voices, wave their hands, and leave believing that convincing someone is the same as winning. But in the Shire, we learn early that a good conversation isn't won, it's savored. When a hobbit disagrees, he stirs his tea slowly and asks if the other wants more sugar. Not because he's yielding, but because he knows that ideas, like tea leaves, only reveal their flavor when given time to rest. And if, by the end of the conversation, the kettle is empty and the heart is calm, then both have truly won. In truth, this rule is less about politics and more about temperature. The hotter the pride, the easier it is to burn the taste of reason. That's why, in the Shire, we say every good discussion needs two things: a good pot of tea and plenty of humility. Preferably, in equal measure. Section 2, on gardening and practical philosophy. Among hobbits, digging the earth is almost a form of meditation. There, between roots and earthworms, they learn that everything worth having takes time. Rule 4. Seeds aren't to be argued over, they're to be planted. Then, you talk to them, very softly, so as not to frighten them. After all, no flower is ever born from a debate. While some talk endlessly about what they intend to grow, hobbits, from an early age, work the soil on their knees, hands deep in the dirt. To them, planting is an act of faith disguised as routine. There are no long speeches, nor grand plans, only the simple gesture of covering something small with hope and waiting for the sun to remember them. It's curious how hobbits rarely ask, "Will it work?" They prefer, "Will it rain today?" which says a lot about where their wisdom lies. In modern times, perhaps people talk too much about their seeds. They discuss projects, deadlines, goals, and harvests before even choosing the soil. Hobbits find that rather amusing. For in the garden, knowing how to act and care brings more results than merely idealizing. In the end, not to argue over seeds means simply this: don't waste words on what time already knows how to do better. If anyone tries to rush the sprout, they'll only end up bending the flower. And talking softly to them, hobbits say, isn't superstition, it's strategy. It's a delicate way of reminding oneself that nothing grows by decree. One can command, insist, reason, but the sprout only breaks through the earth when it wishes. That's why speaking to the seeds is the hobbit's favorite trick for disguising impatience. While they wait for the miracle to happen, they tell the plants their hopes, and without realizing it, also tell them to themselves. And, curiously enough, the miracle does happen, perhaps because nature, like good ideas, enjoys good company. Rule 5. The earth listens better to praise than to complaints. Those who speak ill of the harvest sleep beside thin carrots. For those who plant gratitude reap abundance, but those who sow complaint reap only the wind. Hobbits hold an old belief: the earth has ears, and, worse still, a memory. They say it quite naturally while wiping their boots or inspecting a pumpkin. According to them, the soil is like a dear old aunt, generous when praised, but with an unpredictable temper when treated with disdain. That's why a good Shire gardener never begins the day grumbling. He talks to the soil as one greets a friend, thanks the dew, comments on the scent of the wind, and promises to add more fertilizer tomorrow. It's not that the earth understands words, but somehow it seems to understand intentions. And a hobbit knows, intention, when planted alongside the seed, is the first fertilizer. In modern times, men hurry to demand fruit before even tending the roots. They speak to the world as if it were a lazy employee, not a work partner. They want results, not processes, harvests, not seasons. A hobbit would laugh at that while sharpening his spade. He knows that the soil, much like life, returns exactly the tone it receives. If it hears complaints, it closes in silence. If it receives gratitude, it answers with flowers. That's why, in the Shire, there's an old saying. Carrots grow better when they're praised, and whoever doubts it should try the opposite. In the end, this rule isn't only about gardens, because praising the earth is another way of saying thank you and trusting the process, and that applies to everything one cultivates: friendships, plans, loves, good days. For what is sown with gratitude blossoms, and what is sown with complaint, the wind carries away without ceremony. Rule 6. A well-kept fence is a sign of good intentions. And flowers hanging upon it speak louder than any invitation. In the Shire, a fence never serves merely to separate. It also serves to converse, to offer shade, and to support the elbows of those who pass with time to spare. Good fences are those that mark space politely, firm enough to protect the garden, but beautiful enough not to seem offensive. A hobbit knows that poorly made fences create suspicious neighbors, and suspicious neighbors are weeds hard to pull out. That's why some paint their pickets white before even sweeping the yard. They say fresh paint keeps bad moods away. But the wisest hobbits hang flowers. Flowers, after all, are like framed smiles. They don't stop anyone from entering, but they remind you that kindness lives on the other side. In modern times, people may build taller fences, of walls, of silence, or of haste. Each one closed off in their own garden, guarding their grass from intruders. Yet hobbits say the secret isn't to build higher fences, but to care better for what you wish to protect. Because a gentle boundary isn't weakness, it's an invitation to coexistence. So, when someone asks what the ideal fence height should be, old Gamgee always gives the same answer. High enough for privacy, low enough for conversation. And if there are flowers hanging upon it, then that's it. The world will know that someone lives there who understands not only about limits but about welcomes too. Rule 7. Good company is like a garden. It needs sunlight, shade, and patience. Everyone waters in their own way, but it's the care of all that makes the flowers bloom. Hobbits believe that human relationships and vegetable gardens share the same mystery. Both flourish best when no one is in a hurry to harvest. It's easy to spot those who understand this. They're the ones who listen more than they speak, and who know the right moment to fertilize a silence. In the Shire, when two neighbors argue, it's rare for anyone to shout. At most, one might shut the gate a little harder than necessary. After a while, one of them turns up with a basket of tomatoes, and the matter resolves itself without the need for apologies, for fresh tomatoes say, "We're at peace," better than any speech. The truth is that hobbits treat people the way they treat their plants. Some need sun, others prefer shade. Some bloom with praise, others grow only in silence. To tell the difference, that's what they call wisdom, and it takes years of living side by side to learn. In modern times, perhaps men have forgotten that lesson. They want instant harmony, immediate empathy, coexistence without contradictions. But hobbits know that even the loveliest gardens go through dry spells. And still, no sensible gardener abandons the bed just because one flower was late to bloom. In the end, the secret of good company isn't to understand everything, it's to keep watering even when the flower seems too stubborn to bloom. For those who water with constancy discover, sooner or later, that patience itself has a fragrance. Section 3, on clothing and quiet pride. Hobbits don't dress to impress, they dress to be themselves, even when the world tries to tighten the waistcoat. They know that comfort is a form of wisdom, and that a well-chosen outfit can be a silent compliment to one's own nature. Rule 8. Braces should be either practical or elegant, never both. And never wash them together with Aunt Marigold's socks. They stain the soul. Hobbits have a curious relationship with appearance. They like to look presentable but despise anything that requires too much effort. That's why there's an old wisdom in the Shire: clothes should serve life, not the other way around. They say a young bolger once tried to show off new braces at the harvest festival, pairing them with a wide-brimmed hat and a scarf that shone brighter than moonlight. By the end of the day, he lost his balance while dancing, tore his braces, and knocked over a barrel of cider. Since then, the saying has been engraved in Hobbit memory: either practical or elegant, but never both at once. For such vanity disguised as practicality seems like an attempt to please everyone. But hobbits, wiser as they are, know that one can't be everything at the same time. What matters is being genuine. As for Aunt Marigold's socks, well, every family in the Shire has an aunt like that. Her socks are famous for staining anything that dares share a wash tub with them, and not just in the literal sense. Washing clothes together, they say, is an art of coexistence, and every fabric carries a bit of its owner's temperament. Aunt Marigold's socks, for instance, are cheerful, intense, and a little bossy, and any pair of braces that mingles with them ends up losing its composure. But behind the joke lies a gentle reminder. Living together is an art of balance. One must blend without erasing what makes us unique. Every relationship leaves a trace on us, and it's good to remember that mixing with others isn't the same as losing oneself. It's knowing when certain presences illuminate us, and when others simply challenge us to find our essence again. In the end, hobbits know that too much vanity weighs as heavily as soaked trousers. And they prefer a simple, worn pair of braces, as long as it holds the day in place and doesn't stain anyone's joy. Rule 9. Bare feet are open windows to the world. But in winter, close them. The wind is a fine conversationalist, but terrible at comfort. No hobbit truly understands the world unless they feel it beneath their feet. The soil, for them, is more trustworthy than any map. It shows paths, moods, and even tells the coming of rain. Some say the secret to hobbit happiness is simple: to keep their feet bare and their hearts just as open. Walking barefoot in the Shire is almost a rite of belonging. Each step is a greeting to the earth, a reminder that comfort lives not in luxury, but in connection. Hobbits claim that the ground recognizes them. It knows who treads with respect and who treads with haste. And in a way, it's easy to believe it. There's in them an intimacy with the world that feels as old as the soil itself. But even freedom has its seasons. When the wind blows too cold, even the most stubborn hobbit understands that prudence is a kind of wisdom too. To close the windows, in this case, isn't to shut oneself away, it's to preserve the warmth gathered on gentler days. There's a time to open oneself to the world, and another to tend to one's own fire. In modern times, perhaps going barefoot isn't only a matter of feet, but of attitude. Many go through life shod in haste, never noticing how the world has lost its texture. Hobbits would say there's a kind of joy that can only be felt when the ground returns your touch, and a kind of sadness born when we forget how the earth smells. That's why they keep the simple, wise habit of walking barefoot whenever they can, not in defiance, but in remembrance. For those who feel the ground beneath their feet rarely forget where they came from. Section 4, on neighbors, family, and pleasant intrigues. In the Shire, there is no such thing as absolute silence, only pauses between one story and the next. Neighbors know each other so well that they can guess one another's mood by the sound of a boiling kettle. And if there's one art hobbits have truly mastered, it's the art of meddling in other people's lives without seeming intrusive. After all, living together, around here, is like baking a good cake. It rises best with a touch of curiosity, but must never be left in the oven too long. Rule 10. Don't knock on the door before 10, nor after 4. Unless you bring cake. Cake cancels rules. In the Shire, time has a smell. There's the aroma of 10 o'clock, a blend of coffee, warm bread, and slow-blooming conversation, and the scent of 4, when the kettle begins to sing for tea. Between these 2 hours, the day is sacred. It's the time for chores, naps, and the quiet dignity of those still wearing aprons. That's why knocking on a door outside those hours is almost a social offense. It's not that visitors aren't welcome, it's just that the host might still be in slippers. The rule of no knocking before 10 or after 4 represents personal boundaries, the time for rest, reflection, and time to simply be. But there's one exception as old as the Shire itself: whoever brings cake may enter at any hour. Cake, they say, is a kind of universal passport, a document proving good intentions that makes formalities unnecessary. No one in the Shire has ever questioned this law. After all, it would be foolish to argue with a slice of apple cake. Hobbits believe that respecting time is a form of courtesy, not only toward others, but toward time itself. To know when to leave someone in peace is a rare virtue, as valuable as knowing when to show up with a plate in hand. Every home keeps its own clock, the elders say, but cake is always on time. In modern times, perhaps this rule seems old-fashioned. But there's a deeper meaning in it. It's about recognizing another's rhythm and understanding that kindness is the true foundation of good company. Those who learn this discover that the secret to good neighborly living isn't knowing everything about others' lives, but knowing when to knock and when to bring cake. For cake stands for friendship, sharing, and care, a gesture that softens every boundary. Rule 11. Gossip should perfume, not wound. Describe the neighbor's new hat as you would a curious cloud. In the Shire, gossip is almost an agricultural tradition. It sprouts on its own, in every season. There's no harm in talking about others, so long as it's done with the same care used when picking strawberries, choosing the right tone and never pressing too hard. Hobbits know that words have a scent. Some sweeten the air, while others sour the atmosphere before the tea even cools. That's why they cultivate the golden rule of good company: speak of others as if they were standing just behind the door, and still smile while doing it. Hobbit gossip tends to be more observation than accusation could ever be, light, humorous, and free of judgment, simply noting what is curious or different. Mr. Boffin planted sunflowers again, even though the soil's still tired, says one. Miss Chubb showed up with a hat so tall she must be catching signals from the eagles, says another. And everyone laughs, not out of malice, but because laughter is the cheapest way to understand the world. In the Shire, even criticism comes with sugar. Speaking ill of someone is considered as impolite as wearing shoes indoors. To compliment, even with a touch of irony, is a way to keep the air light and hearts unguarded. In modern times, people may talk a lot but listen little. They've turned gossip into a competitive sport, forgetting that good conversation, like tea, should be served warm, never boiling. Hobbits, however, remain loyal to their method. They tell stories with humor, curiosity, and a hint of affection. After all, as they say around here, those who speak lightly spread laughter, those who speak with venom breathe their own air. And so, in the Shire, even gossip has a purpose, not to divide, but to perfume the day with the gentle fragrance of small joys that harm no one. Rule 12. A lost umbrella is the fault of the same gnome who took the wooden spoon. And he surely lives in the bottom drawer, among the things that only return once you stop looking. In the Shire, no one panics over missing objects. They firmly believe that the world enjoys playing little tricks, not out of malice, but out of boredom. Things, hobbits say, have a will of their own. Spoons hide, buttons fall off on purpose, and umbrellas set out on adventures during rainy afternoons. That's why, whenever something goes missing, the first suspect is always the same, the gnome of the bottom drawer. No one has ever seen him, but everyone swears to have felt his presence, especially when scissors reappear in a place that's already been searched 3 times. The gnome, they say, is mischievous but polite. He enjoys stirring up a little disorder, just to remind folks that absolute control is a dangerous illusion. While modern humans rush to find logical explanations, hobbits prefer to laugh and put the kettle to boil. For them, lightness in the face of the unexpected is a sign of practical wisdom, because those who can laugh at small losses rarely despair over greater ones. Curiously enough, things really do seem to come back once we stop searching for them. Perhaps because life has a sense of humor of its own, or because the very act of letting go is, in itself, a form of finding. Hobbits like to think that the gnome returns what belongs to us as soon as he realizes we've learned to live without it. In the end, this rule isn't truly about spoons and umbrellas, but about acceptance. About understanding that not everything lost needs to be quickly recovered, and that, sometimes, life's little messes are just the universe's way of keeping laughter in motion. Section 5, on happiness and time. In the Shire, no one is ever in a hurry to be happy. It is believed that joy, like bread, needs time to rise, and that haste is merely the wrong kind of yeast. That's why hobbits measure time not in hours, but in kettles. Each pot placed on the fire marks a pause, a conversation, or a laugh. And between one sip and the next, they learn the simplest and hardest lesson of all, that living well is not about chasing time, but walking alongside it. Rule 13, a good nap solves 80% of problems. It's the most polite way of letting life sort itself out. The other 20% require patience, tea, and a certain talent for laughing while dancing in the rain. Hobbits believe that almost everything improves after a good nap. A tired heart thinks poorly, a restless mind talks too much, and neither knows how to listen. Sleeping, therefore, is the art of gently putting the world on pause for a while. That's why, when something goes wrong in the Shire, a pie collapses, a fence falls, or a letter never arrives, no one rushes to fix it. The first step is almost always the same: take a nap. Not out of laziness, but wisdom. After all, it's hard to make sound decisions with burning eyes and an empty stomach. In modern times, men seem to have forgotten this simple trick. They think that the more awake they are, the closer they are to solving things. Hobbits laugh at that, and perhaps they're right. There are problems that only solve themselves once we stop poking at them. While the world outside insists on acting, hobbits choose to wait, preferably while lying down. The most beautiful part of this rule, however, lies in what comes after the nap. Upon waking, hobbits brew tea and look at the problem again, this time with less drama and more humor. That's when they realize that not every rain is a threat, sometimes it's merely an invitation to dance in it. In the end, this rule isn't about laziness, but trust. Trust that time, rest, and a good cup of tea know far more about life than anyone's hurry ever could. And perhaps that's what hobbits call wisdom, knowing when to act, and when to simply take a nap. Rule 14, when bad temper pays a visit, serve cake, not opinions. It doesn't know what to do in the face of sweetness. In the Shire, no one fights bad moods, they invite them for tea. Hobbits learned long ago that some unexpected visitors shouldn't be chased away, but distracted. And nothing distracts a grumpiness better than a fine slice of cake, preferably with generous icing and a modest compliment to the baker. A sensible hobbit knows that fighting fire with pepper is a terrible idea. So instead of raising their voice, they raise the tray. It's the Hobbit version of diplomacy. Sugar speaks first, reason follows. Once, Mr. Hornblow Baggins spent an entire day sulking because his pumpkin patch had been invaded by rabbits. Instead of arguing, Mrs. Hornblow served carrot cake, ironically made from the remains of the invasion. They say he laughed before the second slice and, by the third, was already planning a new fence. Which proves that humor, when well fed, blooms again. Hobbits know that temper is like tea. When it's too hot, it needs time to cool, and perhaps a biscuit on the side. That's why they treat bad days with gentleness and a touch of sugar. After all, a well-served cake mends more resentments than any speech ever could. In modern times, this rule might sound naive, but it hides a quiet wisdom. Sweetness is often the most sophisticated form of courage. And in the Shire, no one doubts that all it takes is a taste to be convinced. Rule 15, time is like tea, it tastes right only if you wait. But don't let it boil too long. No hobbit takes time as seriously as tea. Both require patience, the right temperature, and the rare gift of knowing when to stop. It's a delicate, almost magical balance between doing enough and knowing when to let things unfold on their own. Hobbits say that rushing time is like trying to drink tea before it cools. The result is always the same, a burned tongue and a lesson learned too late. On the other hand, forgetting the kettle on the fire has its own cost, the bitter taste of what was left too long. Between haste and neglect, hobbits have chosen a third way, the way of pause. So when something takes its time to blossom, a harvest, a friendship, an answer, they simply serve another cup. It's not resignation, it's trust. Trust that time, like tea, knows its own perfect moment. In modern times, perhaps the problem is that no one waits for the kettle to sing anymore. People want hot water on demand, instant solutions, happiness in instant packets. But in the Shire, we've learned that the charm of things lies in the waiting. Tea needs steeping, bread needs yeast, and joy needs room to breathe. That's why the rule warns, wait for the right flavor, but don't wait too long. Because time, when forgotten, boils over, and life, like tea, loses its sweetness when we insist on keeping it on the fire for fear it might cool. Section 6, on paths and opportunities. No hobbit plans too far ahead, not out of lack of ambition, but out of wisdom. They know that life rarely follows the map, and that the best destinations usually appear around the bend no one expected. That's why they walk with curious eyes and light hearts, alert to coincidences, to the invitations of chance, and to the smell of cake carried by the wind. In the Shire, it's believed that every path, even the simplest, holds a promise, and that sometimes, luck isn't found, you simply stumble upon it. Rule 16. Friendship is the map that never gets lost. Even when the path changes, a good friend always remembers where the gate is. Hobbits have a curious theory about friendship. They say friends are like old trails, perhaps covered in weeds, but never erased. You can go years without walking them, yet when you decide to return, your feet somehow find the way on their own. In the Shire, friendships aren't measured by grand gestures, but by small consistencies, the tea that waits, the note left by the door, the conversation resumed as if it had paused only yesterday. It's rare for a hobbit to say, "I love you," they'd rather say, "The kettle's already on." And for those who understand, that's all that needs to be said. To them, friendship is the most reliable of maps, not because it shows the way, but because it reminds you where home is. It's the kind of bond that survives distance, routine, and even silence. When a hobbit takes too long to visit another, no one complains, they simply add another chair to the table for when he shows up. Nowadays, men seem to have forgotten this kind of calm loyalty. They seek quick bonds, friendships with deadlines, and instant gratifications. But hobbits know that true affection doesn't need constant display, it simply stays steady as a familiar gate along a road that feels new again. And when the friend finally reappears, the time between one visit and the next vanishes too. It's as if the path had been waiting patiently, ready for reunion. After all, a good friend is one who, even when the map fades, still knows the way back, eyes closed, heart open. Rule 17. Every unexpected road begins with a distracted step. Curiosity is destiny's favorite prank, and a curious hobbit always falls for it with a smile. In the Shire, great adventures rarely begin with plans. They almost always start with someone stepping out to buy flour and returning 3 villages later with stories no one quite believes. Hobbits call these productive accidents, and they swear that much of life's joy comes from the things that weren't on the list. A curious hobbit is both a danger and a blessing. Danger, because they have the natural talent of turning the shortest walk into an odyssey. Blessing, because they return with something others would never have found, a story, a rare seed, or simply the memory of a new smell of grass. They say destiny, mischievous as a gnome, enjoys leaving pleasant traps for the absent-minded. The elder hobbits may distrust curiosity, but they respect it, for they know it's what keeps the world turning, even when no one's pushing. And those who have ever lost their way down the wrong road understand destiny's trick well. It's always along the detour that the heart finds room to breathe. Perhaps people today are too busy to get distracted. Hurry has built roads too straight, calendars without curves, and minds that only look ahead. But hobbits remain loyal to their ancient method, walking without haste and, when tripping, stopping to see what they've stumbled upon. Because sometimes, the best thing that can happen to a traveler is to take the wrong turn, and discover that the wrong turn was, in fact, the right path all along. Rule 18. Opportunity often arrives wearing muddy boots. But those who only open the door for distinguished guests miss the gold hidden in the mud. Hobbits are masters at recognizing value where the rest of the world sees mess. They know that luck rarely knocks wearing a clean suit, and that the best surprises arrive smelling of rain and in need of a good towel. That's why, when someone knocks on a hobbit door on a muddy day, it's customary to open, even if it means dirtying the floor for a while. Opportunity, they say, has the bad habit of disguising itself as inconvenience. Sometimes it shows up as an ill-timed visit, sometimes as an unlikely invitation or a ridiculous idea. And invariably, it forces whoever receives it to set aside the comfort of a tidy rug. But hobbits know that too much comfort dulls curiosity, and that every great harvest begins with muddy hands. Once, old Tobold, a longtime gardener, told how he first discovered the seeds of sweet fennel after slipping down a muddy slope. "Best fall of my life," he used to say. And that's how it goes. Coincidences, however clumsy they seem, often carry what destiny didn't dare to deliver personally. Nowadays, perhaps opportunity still knocks, only now no one hears it, because the noise of obligations is too loud. But in the Shire, just one knock, even if covered in mud, is enough for someone to light the kettle and say, "Come in. If you've come all this way, the wind must have brought a reason." In the end, this rule reminds us that the worth of things lies not in the shine they arrive with, but in what they leave behind when they go. And hobbits, ever practical, would much rather have a muddy visitor who brings something new, than an elegant guest who only comes to talk about the weather. And so ends the little compendium of the Anonymous of Bagshot Row, an unpretentious manual, written between crumbs and naps, yet somehow saying more about life than many serious books ever could. Its rules have no order and no rigid morals, they are simply reminders from a people who learned, between one cup of tea and another, that wisdom lives in simple things. And as we close these pages, there remains the feeling that the Shire is still speaking, softly, through open windows and the scent of bread still warm in the oven. They say hobbits are simple creatures, and perhaps they are. but there is a quiet greatness in the art of living slowly, laughing at one's own quirks, and knowing the exact moment to put the kettle on the stove. For in the end, every unwritten rule of the Shire can be summed up in just one: to live is to care for what blooms nearest the heart.